What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Week 7 NFL Power Rankings show. What a wild week. Some crazy upsets. No more undefeated teams left in the league. So excited to talk about what really matters from this week and rank these teams here. Let's go ahead and get started. If you could, please hit that like button first. I really appreciate it. It really helps me out. It takes just a second. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the rest of my NFL content. And while we're on it, I do want to remind you guys, we have a live show, me and my co-host, Matthew Collar, Hot Routes, where we take on 5 heavy-hitting NFL topics every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern right here on this channel. So that'll be today. Come hang out, and we'll see you there. But without further ado, the bottom team this week is going to be the Carolina Panthers, who I'll admit, offensively, they have turned things on a little bit. They have a bit of a heartbeat there with Bryce Young and Adam Thielen, and the run game a little bit more with Miles Sanders out this week. Chuba Hubbard looks pretty good, but the defense has not followed suit. The defense has fallen completely off. They are one of the worst units in the NFL. So many injuries and just not a disciplined group. So they're in trouble. They're 0-6, and they don't even have their own first-round pick. And then the Arizona Cardinals, who are going to lose 2 spots this week after losing to the Rams. They're a little bit less frisky these days, but still a little frisky. They were in it against the Rams until late, and I just think the Cardinals are doing this thing the right way, as I've been saying. They seem well coached. They just don't have the talent to hang. But they're setting themselves up for some good draft positioning and to build the roster up with a pretty good coach and culture situation around it. And then at number 30, the New England Patriots, who lost to the Raiders this week. The offense just continues to be so anemic, and it's just challenging to even talk about this Patriots team right now. Mac Jones making big mistakes again this week, and then he finally makes his best throw of the season, and Devontae Parker lets the ball go right through his hands, and they might have won that game if he catches that ball. So it's just, everything's bad in New England right now. It's not just Mac Jones, but he's definitely a part of the problem. But let's move on. The Chicago Bears at number 29. A big part of this teardrop is Justin Fields' injury, and we still don't fully know how much time he's going to miss, but you can make a case with Tyson Bagent coming in here. They should be 32. We're going to wait and see kind of just how bad they will be with Tyson Bagent. I think they still can manufacture touches for DJ Moore, and to Matt Eberflus's defense's credit, they've played a little bit better on that side of the ball as of late. But yeah, the Bears aren't any good right now. They fall to 1-5 this week. And then the Denver Broncos at 28. Likewise, their defense is starting to play a little bit better, but at the same time, their offense has fallen off a cliff. They've been really hard to watch offensively the last 6 quarters or so, and they just don't have a winning formula right now. And then to wrap up our bottom tier, the Caleb Williams watch, although if he keeps throwing 3 interceptions every week, this might no longer be the Caleb Williams watch. But anyway, the New York Giants are going to wrap up this bottom tier. Look, they're 1-5 and they lose again, though on some BS. That no call at the end was just brutal. That was clear pass interference. I can't believe that we're still sitting here and can't review these types of game-altering calls in those situations. My opinion is give the refs a second colored flag, a purple flag or a red flag, whatever, where they say, look, that was a bang-bang play. I don't want to decide the game right now. Let me go under the booth and make a decision on if it was pass interference or something. It just feels like there's a much better way to do this. But anyway, the New York Giants were much more frisky this week. That was much more like it. The offense continues to struggle, though I think Tyrod Taylor and his mobility provided some functionality to that offense that they haven't had yet, and getting Saquon back made a difference. But, how about that defense, man? Wink Martindale and that group deserve a ton of credit for really taking it to the Buffalo Bills, and we forget that the Giants' defense was a big part of their surprising season last year. So if they're going to be playing like that, they're going to start winning some football games moving forward. But then we have a new tier here, and it's going to be a small tier of 2 teams that are not quite as bad as the bottom tier teams, not quite as good as the NFL middle class, and 2 teams specifically that, in terms of playoffs this year, take it or leave it. We'll see kind of where their season goes. It seems unlikely at this point, but two teams with young rosters and young quarterbacks that they're trying to kind of figure out right now, and that's the Packers and the Colts. And if the Packers case, of course, with Jordan Love there, and then the Colts case a little bit more tricky because Anthony Richardson may or may not miss the season, but the Colts still a very young roster. The Packers were on bye this week. They're going to lose a spot with some other teams moving up, or just a team moving up. But the Colts, I think, had the worst week in football this week. You get the news about Anthony Richardson, might miss the season. Dallas Flowers, a no-name cornerback that's actually played really well for them, an athletic small school guy in year 2. They really missed him this week against the Jags. He's done for the season. That's a significant loss for them in a way that people don't fully realize. And then the biggest thing is Gardner Minshew, who we thought was going to give the Colts a nice floor offensively, came out with one of the worst quarterback performances we'll see all season. I mean, he just couldn't help himself but throw the ball to the defense. And to know that there is a potential for him to play like that after he had looked pretty good in a couple of starts for the Colts, that's definitely discouraging in terms of how consistent and competitive they can be. So kind of a unique tier here with these two teams. Didn't fully know what to do with them, and a huge drop for the Indianapolis Colts, who did not have a fun week. Now, before we get to our next tier, I got to tell you guys about the sponsor for today's video, Underdog Fantasy. I'm sure you guys have all seen the screenshots going around of people's lineups for their pick'em contests, where you are stringing together player stats, higher or lower, anything from fantasy points to passing yards, sacks, tackles, assists, you name it. And if you hit on your lineup, you can get up to 20 times your entry. You can also buy insurance, so you're allowed to miss on one of your selections, and that still will get you 10 times your money if you hit all your picks. Underdog is the perfect place with, small dollar amount entries with big payouts to just increase your interest in any given football game, a crummy Monday night matchup, Sunday night matchup, you name it. You can get an underdog slip for $2 and you're dialed in through the fourth quarter, waiting to see if that, third string receiver is going to get his 6 yards that you picked the higher on. But right now, Underdog is running a special where they will match up to $500 on your first deposit. That's like 5 years worth of free pick'em entries if you want to go the $500 deposit route. Just make sure you sign up using promo code TFG when you do, and you'll get that match up to $500, and you'll support my channel in the process. But let's get back to it. And then we have our NFL middle class, and the Las Vegas Raiders are back into the middle class after picking up a couple of straight wins. Now, I wasn't overly impressed by them beating the New England Patriots, and it was close, but the defense does continue to impress, and Max Crosby playing in that tier 1 level. He really is up there in terms of the impact he makes on the game with guys like Myles Garrett and TJ Watt and Micah Parsons. And when you have a player like that, it's going to elevate the rest of their defense. And that's exactly what's happened with that group. And offensively, they do what they can. They run the ball, they throw the ball to Devontae, Brian Hoyer comes in, and they're not pretty on the offensive side of the ball. They're really not pretty on the defensive side of the ball either, but they're very competitive. And I think they're well coached. I think Patrick Graham has kind of gotten a little bit of his magic back here. But then we have the New Orleans Saints at number 23. They're going to drop down 3 spots this week. I mean, Derek Carr, they can move the ball offensively, but they can't score because Derek Carr is, I think, the worst red zone quarterback in the modern passing era. Like, he can't extend plays and create throwing opportunities outside of structure, and we know structure gets very difficult down in the red zone. Now, sure, the play calling could be a little bit better, but this is who Derek Carr has been throughout the course of his career, and you have got to put points on the board when you get down in that area, and they're one of the worst red zone offenses in the NFL, and I don't think it's a coincidence that Derek Carr is their quarterback. Defensively, they're the same old group. They're a tough football team, but a tough loss to swallow when they outgained the Texans so much this week. 430 total yards to 297, and they fall short. Then the Atlanta Falcons, who really fell short, felt like they had opportunity after opportunity late in this game to go tie the game, go take the lead. And Desmond Ridder just regressed straight back to that guy that we were talking about a week ago needing to be benched. He had a career game last week and then followed it up with a game that was just about as bad as that London game in Jacksonville, just continuously throwing the ball to the defense, bailing from clean pockets, not a reliable quarterback, and really held the Falcons back again this week. It's not the first time this year that he's done that. Otherwise, this is a pretty solid to average football team. Then we have the Washington Commanders, who beat the Falcons this week to get back to 500. And I got to credit the defense. I know Desmond Ridder kept throwing them the football, but the big thing here was this Washington Commanders run defense pulled a complete 180. After having a tough week against the Bears the week before, they came out and really allowed very little against one of the best rushing teams in the NFL. They had Bijan Robinson tied up in a blanket all game, the D-line flying around these linebackers, Jamin Davis, and the kind of goat, so to speak, in terms of, scapegoat. Cody Barton had a really good game this week. So the Commanders' defense stepped it up in a big way this week. And Sam Howell just, he continues to be a very polarizing quarterback where he takes way too many sacks, but otherwise is pretty solid. So, yeah, they're a middle-class team trending in the right direction. And then a middle-class team not trending in the right direction, the Tennessee Titans. I still think this team is very frisky. No one's going to look forward to playing the Titans, and most of their games feel the same. Ryan Tannehill gets hurt this week. An ankle sprain just like he had last year. We'll see how much time he's going to miss. Do we get to see Will Levis here because Malik Willis comes in and just looks like Malik Willis, taking way too many sacks? I don't know, man. It's tough to find things to say about the Titans every single week because it feels like they've been the same team for like 3 straight years. Then the Pittsburgh Steelers at 19 on bye this week. We can kind of gloss over them. They're just kind of hanging out here. They get 3 spots added in their ranking with some of these teams having rough weeks. And then the Minnesota Vikings are going to stay put at 18. They took care of the Bears and Justin Fields for 2.5 quarters, and then Tyson Bagent. I don't think this was some crazy impressive win, but to get a win with Justin Jefferson out is important for this team if they're trying to win this year, which they are. They stand by Kirk Cousins, or rather Kirk Cousins forces them to stand by him. I will say the defense has really impressed in a way that I think a lot of us kind of expected, going from Ed Donatel and that horrible Fangio-style scheme to Brian Flores, who's genuinely one of the best defensive minds in the NFL. He dialed up some really fun stuff that kind of had Justin Fields in a blender in this game and early on. And it wasn't just, they beat Tyson Bagent. Like, they were dominating Justin Fields in this game, whose offense had played much better the last couple of weeks. So it's not all bad for the Vikings. But offensively, they weren't very good without Justin Jefferson, I will say that. Then the Houston Texans at 17, for all the weeks to kind of rave about CJ Stroud and the Texans offense, this probably wasn't the week they were fine on that side of the ball. They did enough to win there, but this was much more about the Texans defense, which has really come on the last couple of weeks after a slow start, which was kind of expected with a new coach coming in with kind of a motley crew of a defense. But the Texans put up 34 pressures on the New Orleans Saints and really bunkered down in the red zone and secured this win. Also, shout out my dude Blake Cashman, continues to ball out. This guy is incredibly talented. I had a first-round grade on Blake Cashman, higher than Devin Bush when he came out, and he's currently the number 1 rated linebacker per PFF in the NFL right now. Has just been a guy that fell because of injuries and hasn't been available, but man, he is freaking everywhere for this Texans defense. Another big game here for Houston. And that DeMeco Ryans guy has a pretty good eye for linebackers, by the way. So that's been really fun to see. Then the Tampa Bay Bucks, who fall to Detroit this week. I think their defense actually played pretty well against Detroit, but Detroit just made some really impressive plays on third downs. I still think this Bucs defense is going to be pretty frisky as the season goes on, and offensively, it was definitely their worst week. Baker was missing some throws. The inaccuracy issues showed back up, and they didn't have the answers they've had throughout the course of the season. So obviously a disappointing loss, but they're still in first place in the NFC South, and I think a pretty solid football team. 16 feels kind of spot on for the Tampa Bay Bucs right now. And then I did add back in a sixth tier here this week. We had gone down to 5 tiers last week. I'm starting to feel a little bit more of a split between this tier 3 and tier 2. But how about the New York Jets, who I think the words playoffs can start to enter their mind again? What an impressive week to beat the Philadelphia Eagles in a week without DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner. This defense, they just, when they feel like they have a chance to win, they smell blood and just get after it. And it's not just the pass rush and the physicality, but they play smart. Like, they rotate their coverages and just confuse the crap out of Jalen Hurts in this game. They're so well coached. Robert Saleh continues to show his defensive prowess and its impact on this group. So they're just so impressive there. And then Zach Wilson just playing game manager. Like, he, to me, is kind of allowed an opportunity now with these next 5 or 6 games that are very winnable games for the New York Jets. And we just get to kind of reevaluate what we think about Zach Wilson a little bit. And they're a very solid to good team right now when they're playing defense the way they're playing, and they have enough offensively with Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson to move the ball and put up a few touchdowns every week. So even though it was just the one this week, but the big field goals mattered in this one. So big week for the Jets, +8. And you got Aaron Rodgers walking around on the sideline helping out the offense a little bit. And I think some of that hope that he might have this miraculous return has inspired this group too. So the Jets have been very fun these last couple of weeks, really the last 3 weeks, going back to that Chiefs game that they lost. Then the LA Rams at number 14, +3 this week, taking care of business against the Cardinals. Really fun to see this run game come on, just another aspect to this offense that they can lean on. I mean, Kyren Williams is the best running back they've had since, I don't know, Todd Gurley? I don't know. I mean, he's been really good. He's patient. He's got some toughness and power. Even if he lacks those physical tools, he really took over this game late. Really impressive touchdown run in this game. Stafford continues to throw strikes. They're still using Puka. He did drop a touchdown. That's a couple of weeks in a row where Puka's shown some drops, by the way. They're frisky defensively with Aaron Donald and co. Byron Young really coming on as a rookie. They're just a fun team, man. They're, I think, probably the favorite to be the 7 seed in the NFC at this point in time. There's no guarantee that the Seahawks are going to finish ahead of the Rams at this point. But before we get to the Seahawks, we have the LA Chargers at 13, who lost to the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, you kind of got to put that loss on Justin Herbert, I think. The defense actually played really well. They shut down Dallas's run game, which is easier said than done, especially for the LA Chargers. The receivers were getting open. I thought the pass protection was as good as you could have hoped for against the Cowboys defense. But Herbert was just missing throws, man. And he continues to just kind of disappoint in these big spots. And the more and more that happens, the more and more you're going to hear people saying, like, where is this top 5 quarterback? Like, a top 5 quarterback doesn't lose that game on Monday Night Football, and he got severely outplayed by Dak Prescott. And that's just where the Chargers are at right now. They're very week to week, and we kind of were afraid of them being that coming into the year. And then the Seattle Seahawks at number 12, I still think they're a good football team. I still think they're a playoff-capable football team. But I just don't really trust what they're going to be week to week. Offensively, about half their games now have been average to bad, right? Like week 1 against the Rams wasn't great. This week against the Bengals, like their inability to finish drives and protect Geno and Geno making some mistakes in this game, definitely a concern. And then they've had weeks where the defense shows up as lackluster too. So I just, they have a lot of good players. I think they're well coached. I like Geno. But they just do seem to be lacking a little bit of a kind of identity right now, I think. And that holds them out of the kind of Super Bowl capable tier for me. And that's where we're kind of drawing the line here up to this next group, where we are going to have the Cincinnati Bengals winning their second in a row. They've won 3 out of 4, and this was a big win against the Seahawks, and they showed us yet again that this defense and Lou Anarumo, they help them win big football games very consistently. It's been a big part of this team's playoff runs the last couple of years. It's something I really pounded the table for them coming into the year when I picked them to win the damn Super Bowl, which I still don't feel great about, but it was a reminder again this week. And in that Rams game a couple weeks ago, that group is actually special. You have Trey Hendrickson, who's a top 10 edge rusher that doesn't get credit for it. They have a great run defense. They have playmakers on the back end. Dax Hill continues to make plays for them. Really good linebackers, really great coaching with Lou Anarumo, who's one of the best defensive coaches in the league. And this was a big game for them. And then, in the first half, the offense played well. The Seahawks bunkered down in the second half of this game against Joe Burrow and company. But Burrow looks healthy and back. So I'm feeling much better about the Bengals lately. They still have some imperfections, especially offensively right now, but big week for them. +2, kind of back into contention here, I think. Then the Jacksonville Jaguars, they are actually going to lose a spot here because our next team is going to jump them, but big win for the Jags. I don't have anything negative to say about them. I will say this wasn't Trevor Lawrence's best week, but I've defended him being really good this year. And the Jags defense really coming on the last couple of weeks. This was the best game that they've gotten from the combination of Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen. And if those guys are playing like that, they're in business. Now, they were going against backup tackles for the Colts, so we'll see. But the next team here is going to be the Cleveland Browns, who shocked me and really everybody by beating the number 1 team in the NFL with a quarterback off the street in PJ Walker. And this was all about the Browns defense, really. I mean, the joke is this is a defense that needs a nickname. And every 3 or 4 years, we get a group like this. And the Browns really are special like that. We talked about them coming into the year about how much talent they have at all 3 levels. But with Jim Schwartz kind of being another missing piece as the defensive coordinator, this group's incredible, man. They put Brock Purdy in a blender and forced his worst game of his career out of him. And, they got some help from a missed field goal and some injuries for the Niners with McCaffrey and Debo kind of leaving this game. So that's something to factor in. But this defense, if they can play like that against the 49ers offense and make them look so flustered, they're going to be able to do that against anybody. And they're set to get Deshaun Watson back soon, which should have the offense more competent for whatever you want to say about Deshaun Watson. Their offense has really struggled even more without him. So getting him back will be essential. And the Browns are definitely a very good football team, as are their divisional counterparts, the Baltimore Ravens. They climb up to 4-2. They take care of business in London against the Tennessee Titans. I think Lamar just continues to play so well. This week got a little bit more help from his wide receivers, and that defense was just swarming the Tennessee Titans. Jadeveon Clowney has been such a necessary signing for them, especially with Owe and Ojabo have been out. They've really needed him. Even Kyle Van Noy has stepped in and been a really good pass rusher for them. Their defense is really coming together the last couple of weeks, and the offense still kind of figuring out what all works for them and how consistent can they be, but they've got that baseline of Lamar playing really well this year, so they're a very complete team. Definitely impressed this season. Same with the Detroit Lions, man. They just keep rolling. I thought they would honestly run into some struggles against the Bucs with those receivers and a defense that presents some challenges, I think, to the way the Lions like to play. The Bucs are a team that's really challenging to run against, and in this game, they were tough to run against. But it was, again, Jared Goff dropping dimes on third down, making really tough decisions, standing in the pocket, continuing to play like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and I continue to just be blown away with how good of a quarterback he has been now for, 16 games going back to the second half of last season. Like, he's really reshaped who I think he is as a player. Like, I don't look at him as Kirk Cousins or, even Daniel Jones, like that level of quarterback that we thought he was heading into last year. He is so much closer to like Lamar and Herbert and Stafford and that group than he is to Kirk Cousins at this point. And that's a huge difference for this Lions team. But then the Dallas Cowboys at number 6, I think Dak Prescott had one of the biggest moments of his career, if not the biggest, outside of maybe that one playoff win he had. Like, bouncing back after that embarrassing performance against the Niners and kind of putting the team on his back in a big spot. The pass rush was getting in. He was extending plays in a way that he doesn't always do. Made some really big throws in this game. Took care of the football. He was just really impressive and got the job done for this offense. And then the Cowboys defense did their thing. I mean, they made things very challenging on Justin Herbert. We know what that pass rush and that defense is capable of. So the Cowboys looked really good this week. That was a big win against a good Chargers team. And then the Buffalo Bills, they are going to drop down a tier. I don't think they're a tier 1 football team right now. Like, I think they're much closer to these last 3 teams than they are to our top 4 teams. They're playing hard defensively, and they have Josh Allen, and they have Stephon Diggs, and then that's about it. They run into these games where they don't seem to have a great game plan offensively, and that felt like was what happened against the Giants, a game that they should have lost. That was just brutal, like a brutal no call at the end of the game that they got away with. They should have lost that game against the Giants, and they did. They didn't. They win. That's all that matters, right? No, that's not all that matters. They played like shit on Sunday, like they did. They didn't look good. They're dropping out a tier. They got to be more consistent. That's the way it is, man. They're a frustrating team. They really are. And then we've got the Philadelphia Eagles at number 4. Now, they're still in the top tier for me. They have all this incredible talent. They're going to get Jalen Carter back. They're going to get Darius Slay back. But the defense wasn't the problem this week. And outside of that Rams game, I've been kind of saying this about the Eagles, where like Jalen Hurts just hasn't passed the eye test to me this season as this $55 million MVP candidate quarterback. And it was little kind of, picky points and knick-knack and ticky-tack, criticisms of him where it's like, yeah, he's bailing from a lot of clean pockets and he's missing some throws and he's missing some reads and like he's playing good enough to win when, the rest of the team is so good. But this week, he lost the game for his team and played truly horrible. He was bailing from clean pockets. He was, not sensing pressure when it did get in. He was obviously forcing horrible reads. That's just really tough to see. And I know he's got better play ahead of him. I know this team is incredible in terms of their roster talent, and they're 5-1. It's not like it's time to panic, but the point I'm trying to make is Jalen Hurts, I think, is going to have to play better if this team is going to go and, take down not just the Niners, but, Hurts is going to have to play better if they're going to beat Detroit and Dallas on a consistent basis. And I think he's capable of it. But look, Eagles fans, if you want to say he's a top 5 quarterback, you want to pay him $55 million, you want to put him in the MVP conversation, he can't play like he's playing this year. It's just the way it is. Then we have the Kansas City Chiefs at number 3. And I've seen some people push back on the Chiefs being ranked this high. I will continue to make this point because it was the same thing this week, where this team reminds me so much of those 12, 13 win Patriots teams, those Packers teams late in Aaron Rodgers' career, where they are not flashy. They're not explosive. They don't have the weaponry to beat you into the dirt like some of these other top tier teams. And they're not as fun to watch necessarily, even though they have Mahomes. But what they do have is a very underrated defense. Mahomes and Kelsey get all of the talk that I don't think people realize what this defense is accomplishing this year. They're good at all 3 levels. They're very good at all 3 levels. They have a great pass rush with Chris Jones. Charles Omenihu coming back this week, by the way, a big free agent signing for them who got suspended. They have great linebackers, and they have one of the best cornerback duos in the NFL and one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL in Steve Spagnuolo. So that's really the identity of this team that just kind of flies under the radar because it's Mahomes and Kelsey and Taylor Swift on the other side. But offensively, what they're going to do is milk out these games late, because while they can't necessarily beat you with these huge completions like they used to Tyreek Hill and company, what they will do is meticulously take away the clock by converting 3rd and 6 with Mahomes's scrambling ability and his ability to find Kelsey just enough to move the sticks. And again, while it's not flashy, it's incredibly effective because they can just milk out these games late and bleed you to death. And that's a really effective formula for winning football games. And when they're so consistent at that, which is a challenging way to be consistent, but they have the pieces to do it consistently, they deserve to be up here with these guys. Then we have the Miami Dolphins at number 2. Kind of speak for themselves. Like, they just continue to steamroll. Their one loss was when they ran into Josh Allen on a good day. And honestly, any team that I can think of, the Legion of Boom, the Prime Patriots, like whatever it is, if you run into Josh Allen when he is on like he was in that Dolphins game, good luck. Like, that's Superman quarterback right there. And that was their loss, was they just couldn't keep pace with an offense that put up, 45 points on them? Like, I don't think their defense is perfect, but with getting Jalen Phillips back and this pass rush coming on a little bit more lately, they're fine. And offensively, like, they just continue to roll, man. It's insane what they're able to do on that side of the ball. So they're going to come in right now as the top team in the AFC. They've just blown me away this year. And then the 49ers, I am going to keep them at number 1. The biggest thing for me is we'll see what these injuries look like. They have the opening drive touchdown, and I'm sitting there watching these games with a good buddy of mine, and I'm like, I feel like the only thing that could derail the Niners right now are injuries. And right after I said that, I'm sorry, Niners fans, we see Debo and McCaffrey leave the game. And you take those pieces out, and Brock Purdy shows his true colors a little bit more. And, some of these missed throws start to stack up a little bit more. I feel like Brock Purdy showed us what we all kind of knew, but didn't want to say in this game, and that he is very much a quarterback that benefits from the system. He's better than Jimmy Garoppolo. He's better than players they've had in the past in terms of adding a little bit on top of that, but he's not a quarterback that's going to put the team on his back and all that. But overall, am I worried about the Niners right now? Unless I see that Debo and McCaffrey are going to miss significant time, no, I'm not. I mean, you're not going to run into the Browns defense every week. It was a poor conditions game. And shit, they were, a questionable pass interference or a missed field goal from their rookie kicker, which, by the way, everybody stop drafting kickers in the 3rd and 4th round thinking it's any different than picking one up as a 6th rounder or an undrafted free agent. It's just insane that teams keep doing this. But they still were in very good position to win this game despite a lot of challenges coming their way. So they're not going to go undefeated, but they, to me, are still the number 1 team in the NFL, in my opinion. And there's your Week 7 power rankings. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. Again, please do hit that like button if you did. Make sure you join us for Hot Routes tonight at 6 Eastern. Me and Matthew Collar, we've loved doing that show. Would love to see you there. But other than that, we'll see you later. Peace out.